Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, I am Mackenzie Kilshaw, your host of Winning, and I am so excited today to have a friend, and you might recognize her voice because she did the opening for me, and I'm super pumped to have Shauna Foster on. Hi, Shauna.
Hey, I am so happy to be here and part of your new exciting adventure because not only are we friends, but I feel like I've also been a part of your business journey from the start of the store in Saskatoon to now this. And it's just been awesome walking alongside you.
But you know what? I love hearing that because I was just thinking the other day about how when I first opened my store, I did a live on location and you came and you hosted the radio show from my store, which was so cool. And it's like totally come full circle now, I feel. So that's cool that you have that thought too.
I love that. And whenever that little picture from, one of those events that I did with you pops up in, an Instagram memory or whatever, yeah. I just think, well, first of all, gosh, we look a lot younger and hotter.
Oh gosh, I know. It's like, what happened in 10 years?
Yeah, it has to be 10 years, right?
Yeah. I started 2013. I started my business plan. I opened 2014. So 9 months, I guess. But yeah.
Amazing.
Crazy. I know. Yeah. And I was reading your bio and the first thing in your bio is with over 20 years of experience as a radio host. I'm like, how? You're like 25. So I don't know how this.
You are so kind. As like my niece and nephew, they're twins and they just turned 13. And, you remember the day they were born because they were twins and they came super, super early. They were very premature. And I'm looking at them today. They're 13 going, come on. Like, I still feel 25. How can you be 13? But
I'm the same.
It's the way it goes.
I know. It's crazy. So I do want Shauna to I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, but I just want to go over some highlights because if you're not from, let's say Saskatchewan, because really people in Saskatoon know you, but if you're not from Saskatchewan, Shauna hosts a morning show, the Rob and Shauna Show. And like I said, she's been doing it for over 20 years, which I don't even know how that's possible. She's a mom of Jocelyn and Cash. She has interviewed, now let me just say some of these names, like this is total name dropping here. Oprah Winfrey, Garth Brooks, Ed Sheeran, Beyonce, like get out of here. She's from a small town, same as me. I feel like we're very like kindred on that. She's got a book club. She's been live with Kelly, you guys. She was a finalist for co-host. She's won the Canadian Consumer Choice Award for Female of the Year. She was given the Sterling Award for Community Service at the Silver Spoon Dinner. And Silver Spoon, she's hosted that event for also 20 years, which I don't know how that's possible. And the Silver Spoon Dinner is an amazing event that I always take part of. So that's Shauna, all of her highlights, I will say. But Shauna, tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? Where'd you start out? Give us all the details.
Well, I feel like at heart, I'm a small town girl. I always say that. I grew up in a really small town, Aberdeen, Saskatchewan, about 25 minutes outside of Saskatoon, a town of 500 people, really little school. Everyone always jokes with me because they'll say something like, oh, what were you like in high school? And I'll think back and go, I think I was the same person I was like K through 12 because we were one school. It's not like we had a separate high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Weren't that fancy in Aberdeen, if you get my drift. But I do feel like I am still that small town girl at heart. I take huge pride in small town Saskatchewan or just small town prairies. I love the lifestyle, even though, I haven't lived there since grade 12. I still feel like it's that's my heart is small town Saskatchewan. And I was always that kind of geeky drama English kid. You know, I would write extra essays because I just thoroughly enjoyed doing it. I mean, what? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I did all the plays. I started doing some TV commercial work when I was in grades like 9 through 12 that I got involved in. I had a very passionate drama instructor. She was just heavily involved with, you know, Persephone and different groups in Saskatoon. And so she kind of took me under her wing, and I'll be forever grateful to her for that, because she saw something, I guess, in me that maybe needed to be let out. And all through high school, like I said, grades 9 through 12, I knew that I wanted to do something in the community with people, talking and interacting with people. I didn't know then what it would look like. I did a couple of part-time jobs and different internships at CTV and at Global, and actually at C95, where I work now at Rolco Radio. And just through those internships and part-time jobs through high school, it kind of was honing in that I should do something maybe in broadcasting. And so that's where I wound up after grade 12. I had initially actually applied to get into the U of S and get a marketing degree, because I thought at the very least, if I got a marketing degree, it might help me down the road.
Yeah.
But at the same time that I got accepted into the university, I was also accepted into broadcast college. And I just made the decision. I just went with my heart. And seemed like a crazy one at that point, because all of my friends were either going to university or they were taking a year off to travel. And I still maybe even have some regrets that I didn't take that year off to travel, because I just, boom, got right into it, went to school. And I guess the rest is history. I was about 6 months into my program. I did television and radio. And my instructor at the time said, I think I'm going to send a couple of tapes off to some of the local broadcasting businesses in Saskatoon, like, you know, Rolco Radio and CTV. And he said, I just want to see what they say, and more just to get feedback. So he did that on my behalf. And I got hired by Rolco Radio the next week. So I didn't technically finish school. I started at Rolco right away. And then I wound up going back and finishing my diploma on my own time, and submitted work for my finals. Like, for all of my final exams, I actually submitted work of me on air. Yeah, like actual newscasts of, you know, little Shauna, 18 years old. I was 18 when I started at Rolco. I wasn't even 19 yet, because we used to do all these bar gigs, right? And so, you know, Mark Loesch, all these like announcers that I grew up listening to, they're like, hey, Foster, do you want to come to the bar with us? And I'm nervous going, okay. He'd sneak me in, and I do these shows from the bar as this 18-year-old Aberdeen kid. It's crazy when I go back and think about it, but it was definitely an aggressive entry, I guess, into broadcasting.
Yeah. So you jumped right in. I mean, there was nothing slow about that.
Nothing slow. And like the hours, I still have crazy hours, right? Like the hours never got better. I always hope that, you know, as a 19-year-old and, you know, meeting guys and going to the bar and wanting to party, like, gosh, I got to get up at 3 a.m. Are you freaking kidding me? And I would do it. But I would do it because I wouldn't go to bed. I would, you know, go to the bar, party with my friends who are all in university at this point, and then I would just go to work.
Oh my God.
And now I'm not sure I could pull that off, because a hangover lasts far too long.
Oh my gosh. I can't even stay out past midnight anymore. Like, I'm like Cinderella. Midnight comes, like, okay, peace out, everybody. Like, done. So I don't know how.
And I'm garbage for 4 days after.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Lay on the couch. And like, who has time to lay on the couch? Not you or I.
Exactly. We do not have time to lay on the couch. I wish for time on the couch.
A huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudaySpa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. I always die because I will wake up to like a text message or an Instagram message or something from you, and it'll be like 3:42 a.m. I'm like, No, Shauna's not still awake. She's getting up to go to work. Like that, it still blows my mind that you get up.
My friends say that, and it's like they all know, okay, you better keep your phone on silent because Foster will be texting at some god awful time. I've had like friends who have had babies and they just know that if they're up doing a feeding at midnight, text me. Like, I'm always going to be up for you. You got an early flight, shoot me a text. I'm up. I got you. I got your back.
Okay, so I don't even have this as a question, but I feel like I want to know this, and I kind of do because I've asked you before, but what is your day? Like, you get up at 3:30 in the morning. What's your day look like?
Okay, so my day, it begins. So I get up usually at about 3. I will stay in bed until like 20 after 3, and I will do a very quick get the cobwebs out of my head, catch up on what's happened since bedtime. So I'll quickly scour like a few news headlines.
Yep.
I'll check all of my feeds, like whether it's Instagram or, Facebook. I'll check my online messages, my DMs, emails, and I will like set a few priorities that I have to take care of first thing in the morning, and then I'll leave the rest. I'll quickly go into the bathroom. I sneak in there, no lights on because I don't want to wake the household.
Yeah.
And I'll quickly get ready. It's a lot of my life is about scheduling and I think prioritizing. So, the night before, my clothes will always be laid out. Like I have everything, in compartments almost set out for me to go about this crazy day of mine. So I quickly get ready. I've narrowed it down to like a 10-minute process basically, because I get blowouts now in my hair all the time so that I don't have to actually wash my own hair. Life-saving goal. Like hack.
Every penny, right?
Yeah. The biggest hack. And I'll get things like, eyelash extensions because then I don't have to worry about wearing makeup. I'll just put some blush and lip gloss on. So I've learned to kind of do those things. And at first you think, oh, am I being selfish because I'm getting my hair done all the time or I'm getting lash extensions? After a while, you just go, no, I need the sleep. So if that saves 5 minutes of sleep, then I'm all for it. So I'll quickly get ready and then I come downstairs. I'm out the door before 4 a.m. I get to work. I'll do a few things around the radio station, kind of say good morning, sort of get the lay of the land at the radio station. Keeping in mind, too, there is something refreshing about getting into a workplace at that crazy time and knowing that you've got some friends there. The newsroom's full. Like they've been there since 3. So there's people there. There's other show hosts. And even if you're having the worst, tired, feeling garbage day, that there's some people that might be feeling the same or at least can commiserate with you and maybe give you an extra coffee or just a hug. And you like they know that they have your back and vice versa. So there is something lovely. I heard an old boss of mine, he lives in Vancouver now, and he's been doing radio for probably 30 plus years. And he always said to me that there is no more special a place than a radio station at 3 a.m. And he's so right. It's that special, like golden time where we're kind of quiet, no one's out being all boisterous at that time yet, but there is something magical about the radio station at that time, like 3 or 4 a.m. It's sort of an awesome place to be. So I go about doing things for the show at that point. So typically between 4 and 6, it's go time. Like I am on a dead run. Like I am writing newscasts. I'm voicing things for other markets because I do shows in Regina and Calgary as well. I'll, get ready in terms of what I need for the show, whether it's audio. An example would be Shania Twain was performing at the People's Choice Awards, a couple nights ago. So the next morning I would find that performance, pull that audio, edit it up, knowing that that's something we'll use on our show. And now from doing the podcast, like even editing audio, it's another full-time job. So
yeah, I don't do it because my theory is if I don't know how to do something well or don't like doing it, I farm it out. So I don't do that. But that's why I don't do it, frankly, is because it's time consuming.
Yeah, it takes time. And doing all those shows for our other markets take time. I do a show in Calgary. It's a weekend show, but I take care of it all through the week. So I do bits and pieces of it, get that audio, make calls, do all those things through the week so that the show is ready to roll by Saturday. So it's really like a crunch time between 4 and 6. And then of course from 6 to 9, I do the actual live morning show. And then from 9 to noon, that's the part of my day where I sort of fit in all of the appointments and the meetings and kind of the face-to-face stuff. You know, when we're doing the show, it's just us behind a mic and I can wear a sweatsuit, really. Frankly, no one sees me. But from 9 to noon, I tend to do more client meetings. I'll go to businesses. I might run to, you know, GMG Jewelers and go try on some jewelry and film there. Or a lot of what I do after that is video work. And so I wish I could wear sweats every day. But some days I actually have to look presentable because I will have to go host something. You know, I might have an event. We're into really busy time here. So I get asked to host a lot of events and MC things, or, you know, might be live on location. And then I come home and I kind of have a day, like an afternoon, to sort of decompress a little bit. I used to nap all the time. I no longer have been able to since having the kids, but I'll one day get back to that, I think, when they're in school full time.
Yeah.
And then it sort of starts again. Yeah, like little kids makes it really hard. But I know that I'll get to a place where I will get more rest. Like I always say, it'll happen someday.
Yep.
But then you kind of start a new mindset of the next day. So it might be Rob and I texting each other like, hey, did you see so-and-so on TV? Or, you know, yesterday he was out at a business and he noticed this and we should maybe talk about this. So like the afternoon and the early evening is kind of this momentum build for the next day's show. And then I'm doing all the mom things. I'm picking kids up from school. We're going to choir practice. You know, we're going to swimming and gymnastics and all of that. And then the biggest question I get is, aside from what time do you get up, is what time do you go to bed?
Yeah.
And ideally, I would like to be asleep by 8 o'clock. And that's like super loserville. I know that.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, you have to do what you got to do to get the proper rest. And even at that, that's not probably proper rest. I should probably go to bed at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., but I can't. And there will come a time when my kids are old and make fun of me and mock me, and they'll probably sneak out. But here's the thing. If they sneak out, guess what? I'm going to be there catching you because I'll be getting up for work.
Exactly. You know what kind of
my eyes.
Yeah. You know what kind
of that's my day. It's a crazy long day.
It is. It is a crazy long day. It kind of maybe surprises me, and I don't know why. I guess I never thought about it before, but that you're sourcing all of the content and editing everything yourself. Like, I don't know why I thought that there would be like a guy or girl or whatever to do that.
Right?
Yeah.
Typically talk shows and like television shows, they will always have a producer. And way back when, like probably 15 years ago, we were at a point where we were kind of just getting a bit overwhelmed with doing all those things. And so we did bring a producer in. Her name was Sherry.
Yeah.
And we loved having Sherry. And she ended up becoming a full-fledged member of our morning show. It was Rob, Shauna, and Sherry. I loved those years. Those were like the most 5 amazing years ever that we got to work together because we had already been best friends. So you're working with your best friend again. Yeah. And then Sherry just got too dang talented and she started her own morning show. So Sherry is now, you know, doing her own amazing thing on a morning show and living another kind of crazy life. They don't have kids, but they have a dog and, you know, she's out emceeing things at night. And
I was going to say, she's all over too.
She's all over the place. She'll do the bar gigs still. So she'll be at the bar at night, you know, with the Rock 102 audience and doing games and hosting trivia and doing, you know, sports events at the Canadian Brew House.
Yeah.
And then she comes in at 3 a.m. and she hasn't slept. And
I'm tired just like talking about this. I literally get up at like 7 a.m.
I don't want to put people to sleep with this. But that's just a little snapshot at our day. But everyone always asks too, like, do you ever get used to it? And I guess, yeah, your body gets used to it. Your body gets used to not having that rest and surviving better on not having the rest. And I remember when I was pregnant and had the kids and, you know, people would say, oh, get your sleep now because you won't have it when you have a baby screaming. And honestly, I survived that baby stage. I thrived in that baby stage because I was used to not sleeping. So
exactly.
Getting up for a feed at 2 a.m., whatever, I'm up already. So I never, ever was bothered by it. Like, I enjoyed the baby stage, I think, for that reason. So maybe it was all just preparation.
Yeah, exactly. you're getting ready for your kids. Yeah, it's crazy though, because it's such a not a norm for most people, right? Like it's the thought of getting up at 3 a.m. I do that to go on a airplane to get somewhere hot. Like the thought of doing that every day, people are like, do you go to the 5:30 a.m. workout class? I'm like, are you kidding me? No, I'm not getting up that early. That's my mindset, but you've lived this for 20 plus years. So it's just,
and you do get used to it as part of your norm. And the other thing too is I always try to say, yes, it's a weird shift and it's a difficult shift, but I also hear from at all hours of the night from nurses who I've become friends with over the years. And I think too, you're nursing in excruciating circumstances all night. You maybe haven't slept, or maybe you're on your third shift in a row. And I always think, man, there is just a lot more intense jobs than me who gets to talk about celebrities pretty much all day. So I always try to be really grateful and know that what I'm doing, is just this little tiny piece of the world puzzle. And I just have the utmost respect for those, and especially in healthcare, who are working those crazy shifts.
I totally agree. But then when I think of you, I feel like what you do gets those people through that. Right? Because you're on there in the morning and you are, I've known you for a long time, but you're cheerful and you're bubbly and outgoing. And that when people hear you, that helps them, right? That helps them get through those hard things.
I hope so. One thing that really became clear to me at the start of COVID. So COVID hits, right? And our world closes down. Yep. And at that time, I had a pretty healthy social media following and Instagram following. I don't remember, probably 10,000 followers or something like that. And those people were all, listeners of our radio stations or had known me from being in the community for so many years. But when COVID hit, I really saw an uptick in the numbers of people following me on social media, and not only just the numbers of people following me, but interacting with me. And I think it's because I sort of said from the start, I don't want this to be a negative place, whether that's on our show or whether that's on my social media. I always want it to be a place where people feel comfortable coming to talk to me. And if they're feeling bummed out, maybe I can make them laugh for a second, a minute. And so I did notice when COVID hit that maybe I was providing a bit of a release or relief for people. So I just kind of went with that and thought, well, it's me from my basement doing a morning show. That's kind of weird, but maybe some people will get a kick out of it. And I actually did the show from home through my maternity leave with Cash. I had started doing shows already from home. So I was kind of prepared for COVID in that way, that I knew how to do a show. I have a studio at home, so I'm able to do a full-fledged morning show from my house in my pajamas. So
yeah, which is cool.
I guess that I was ready. I was maybe ready for COVID and I didn't even know it.
Exactly. Your social media is something I really wanted to chat about, because you're an influencer, and I kind of hate that word because it sounds like you're trying to influence people, but I don't think you're trying. I think what you're doing is exactly what we just said. You are making it a safe place, a happy place, right? Place where people can go and also see themselves. Lots of times when I watch your reels, I'm like, oh my God, that just happened in our house. Or, you're like, oh, I'm not the only one, right? And I like that you're so authentic and real on there. And I think that's how you're following. I should know this. I should have done some research on this, but I have no idea how many followers you have. I know it's it's in the.
I feel like with that, with the social media and with Instagram and everything, I feel like I'm just kind of your OG girl, right? If I tell you about something in my life, it's because I'm hopeful that maybe someone else has gone through that. Whether it's me singing in my car or, I'll dance in my house in front of my kids and they're mocking me, Jeff's mocking me, and then I'll film it because I'll think, well, damn it, I feel like I'm good. Okay.
Yep. You did. Okay. Last week you did a waiting for pickup in the car. And I was like, this is my life. I have a 14-year-old stepson, and I literally have the 90s playing, and I'm singing, and he gets in the car and gives me a look of dear Lord, please don't ever do this again. Right. That's me. I'm this, and it gives you that laugh. It gives you that feel good. Like it's that, like, okay, it's not just me, right? Which I appreciate.
That's what I always want. I want, whether it's my kid, like, okay, like Cash had this thing and oh my God, it drove me crazy this last year where he started flushing things down the toilet. And I knew from other moms that this is just a little phase, right? It's not that big of a deal. No, like I have had plumbers in my house 3 or 4 times this year, like to the point where they actually thought they had to remove the toilet and do like a deep dive, down into the depths of the house because he flushed stuff. He flushed a remote. He tried to flush one of Jossie's Barbie dolls. And when he couldn't, he ripped the head off and just flushed the head.
Great.
And so I remember I started telling these stories about Cash's flushing, obsession. And oh my gosh, like the amount of people that would message me or want to comment, or like they would show me pictures of things that their kid had flushed over the years. And it made me feel good. Like, yes, I'm sharing these gross, ugly details of my life. It's not that exciting. Your kid flushed some stuff down the toilet. But as I'm reading these DMs, I'm laughing. Like I have tears down my face at what some of these moms are telling me. So I do feel like Instagram is this awesome, organic, natural community of friends. I've met so many of these people in person, in real life. And you do have this connection with them. And that's what I've always wanted it to be, whether I'm talking about something I'm wearing or showing off something I like, or, a toilet that the kids flush something down. I just hope that maybe you went through it. And then we have that connection. So for me, like my number one, I guess, goal and my kind of my motto on my page is connection. It's just connecting with people. That's all it is. And it's no different than my goal on C95 or whatever station I might be working on at the time. It's all about connecting with listeners when we're doing the show. And so years and years ago, I thought, well, there's a way to do that on digital, on social media. And it's a connection. It's a different connection, but it's still a connection. And so I guess that's just what I'm about. It's about being open and, hoping that someone resonates with something you said.
Yeah. Well, and 100%, they call it social media because it's social, right? Like It's like going out and seeing people, but instead of going out, they're seeing you on their phone, right?
Yeah. In bed at 3 a.m. Catch up on my stories.
But I think too, I was going to ask you how you grew your audience, but you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of that is because you're authentic and you're real. You're not trying to be something. You're just yourself, right? And people feel that connection then. Do you think that's right?
Well, I hope so. I mean, thanks for pointing that out. I hope so. I always feel like, almost they use that word. I hear it thrown around like imposter syndrome. And
yes.
And I do sometimes I'll be like, oh, I posted this and I didn't maybe feel 100% comfortable with it or good about it. And I'll actually go back and maybe even edit and I'll throw it out there in Shauna way. And then I feel awesome about it. So I just sometimes do need to edit myself, I think, because I always want to be as organic and real and to make others feel comfortable. I don't ever want to be up here on a pedestal where someone feels like, oh, I could never talk to her. I could never reach out to her. No, that's crazy. I always want, like if I'm wearing something that's a $20 sweatsuit or a $300 pair of jeans, I'm going to be honest with you about what I paid for it. And, I never want to make it seem like I am better than anyone else. Cause oh my God, I know I'm not. And I always just want it to be like an even playing field, that we're all just treading water together really at the end of the day.
Exactly. Like we're all the same. We are different aspects, but literally we're all just human beings going through life, right?
Exactly. And we're going to make mistakes. That's the other thing. We're going to say stuff that you go, oh my gosh. But my embarrassment level is, I don't even know what the bar is, because for doing the show for so many years, I just don't really get that embarrassed anymore. I mean, sometimes obviously you get flushed in the face and you get embarrassed, but like more often than not, I'm willing to put that out there because I want someone to see like, geez, if she's willing to make that big of an ass of herself, then what I do is not such a big deal.
Yeah. But you know what? That resonates with business too, because we talk a lot about whatever you're doing, right? Is that you have to take those chances because you'll never succeed if you don't try. And you might fail. You might fall flat on your face or embarrass yourself or do something that you're like, oh, I shouldn't have like said that or done that or whatever it is. But more times than not, there's a win, right? It's not a, yeah.
I think it's like having also, and you would know this from having the store for so many years, it's also about recognizing your niche, right? I know that my niche is everyday life with Shauna. I even have that on my Instagram now. It's the everyday. That's what I am. You're following along. And if you're along for the ride, I love it. But you're just going to get my everyday. It's not going to be some glitz and glamour. It's just not, because that's not how I live. And so I feel like, you know, you with the business, you recognize from day one, this is what I want, this personal, really elegant shopping experience, but we're going to be friends. You know, how many friends have you met over the years they're your heart, right? Because they knew you, they loved your niche, and they just become part of your family. So it's just no different, I think, than having a business. It could be fashion. It could be, you could be selling tires. It's about identifying your niche and really sticking to it, I guess.
For sure. And I mean, just like everything, my store wasn't for everyone. You're not, if people want to see that glitz and glamour and that's not on your page, then don't follow you. Like you're not, you can't please everyone. You can't make everyone happy, and you shouldn't want to or have to, right? Like be authentic, be you. And that's how you find success, right? Because it's real.
I think that that's so true. And that sometimes you have to be prepared to get haters. It's really hard. It is like, oh, we might get a bad text to the show and it sits with me like all day. You know that feeling, right? You just feel sick. But I've learned, I guess, over the years that those people also deserve a conversation. And so if they're that upset about something that maybe I've said or Rob has said or anyone or something I've done or worn or whatever the situation might be, that I want them to know that even if they're not happy with me or something I've done, I want to invite that conversation so we can discuss it. I'm not going to be one of those people who like block. I probably won't do that. I remember I had to block someone once, and it was a serious situation where it was almost getting like, kind of borderline stalker. And I felt sick about not what they'd said and had kept doing and harassing. I felt sick about blocking them because I thought, now I've shut them down completely. And it must have hurt a little bit, right? Because it hurt me. It totally hurt me. Yeah. So I do try to always at least invite the conversation. We might not see eye to eye, but hey, let's talk about it. Let's hash it out. It happened lots through COVID. I think COVID was a hot button for so many people, but me being in the public spotlight, my kids both had COVID like early on when it was the bad Delta situation. And I would get all kinds of advice like, well, maybe if you would have breastfed longer, they would have better. Just stuff that you just knew. I don't want to venture down that road.
No.
But, so I think people are maybe a little more apt. We call them the keyboard warriors, right? It's easy to text something into the show or to DM me. But when I actually call you out and say, okay, let's discuss this, more often than not, people will say, you know what, I'm sorry. Like, why did I even do that? Or I see your point. They're more than happy to discuss it, and it winds up being an okay situation.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's okay to disagree. Like, we live in a giant world. We don't all like the same things, feel the same.
No.
But I do agree with you on the whole behind your computer or behind your phone. It's really easy to say something mean.
It's terrible.
It is. It's terrible. And I've always had the mindset of, in business anyways, collaboration over competition, right? Like I'm not going to say something bad. Yeah. Like, and it goes the same for social media, but I'm not going to say something bad about another business or another female entrepreneur maybe I don't agree with what they're doing, or it's not something I would do, but it's them. Like, who am I to say poo poo on you? Right? Like,
I completely agree.
Like, if you don't agree, just move along. You don't need to be the troll and make the mean comment, you know?
I've had especially when it comes to women, right? Like, we need to uplift each other and support each other. And you're right. It may not even be something that you necessarily support, or it's a completely different ideology or whatever the situation may be. But I do think we need to lift each other up and at least commend that person. They're putting their work in. They're working hard at whatever their niche is and what they're doing. And I do feel like as a whole, we're getting better at that. Like, I want to believe that we are. You would have seen this lots in the fashion industry, right? But I feel like, like there is a time and a place for all of us, no matter what it is, to shine. There just is.
Exactly. And it's a big world. And there's unlimited, like, I always used to think, like, even my store, when I had my clothing store, there is a lot of customers. There's enough customers. I don't have to try to fight for your customers. There's enough customers for me to have my own. And guess what? A lot of people are going to be my customer and your customer, right? It's like seeing people, the social media wars just drive me nuts, because I'm like, all these people fighting on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And like, I don't even read comments anymore on like news things or posts, because I would get so upset by them. And, you know, there's always positive stuff. There is always positive stuff, but it's the negative stuff that stays with you. And I've had to block people. Yeah. I have had it. It's really, I feel like it makes me sad.
You hated it, didn't you?
I hated it. And I don't have the following that you have, but these are mostly people that I know that were sending me things that I was like, don't bring me into this. Like, I don't like drama. I don't like conflict. I must stay away from that stuff, because I think it only makes our world negative. And I want to make the world positive.
I think too that sometimes it's something that is so small. It's not even like a big issue. There's a famous story that goes around the radio station. A few years ago, someone texted the show. And keep in mind, when someone texts the show, it comes up on a computer screen, right? You just see their number. You don't see any of their personal information, but we do have the number. And someone texted the show and they said just really horrible things about me. Like, you know, she's a bitch, and, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She shouldn't even be doing the morning show. It was just like all the worst things you can imagine. And I was just devastated, because I couldn't believe it. I thought, and they were mocking my laugh, because I have a loud, obnoxious laugh. And so it was just this awful text, and Rob could tell I was upset. And he's like, why are you letting this get to you? It's water off a duck's back. You don't know this person. Like, you don't even know who they are. And I said, yeah, but what if I do? That's the thing. It could be my neighbor down the street. How do I know? Because all it comes up is the number. So I said to him, get on the phone. I said, we're calling that person. He's like, no. He's like, Foster, no. I said, no, screw that. I'm calling. So we call this person, and they answer right away. And it's a guy. And I said, hello? I said, it's Shauna from C95. I said, I just got your text. And he's like, oh, he said, I didn't think you'd get it. And I said, well, you sent it to the show.
Get it. Yeah. There's no producer, pal.
I said, that was super hurtful. And I said, I don't know why you sent that. It was out of the blue. It was not warranted. Like, did I do something? Do I know you? Like, did I hurt you? This is what he said. He said that a couple of years prior to that, a new Star Wars movie had come out, and I mispronounced some of the characters in Star Wars, because guess what? I don't know Star Wars. I don't give a shit about Star Wars.
You don't care.
Seriously? He was holding that? I mispronounced a Star Wars character's name. He held on to that grudge for 2 years. He said, you know, that really hurt my feelings. He said, like, I take Star Wars very seriously. He finally got up the courage to text the show.
And good for him for finally 2 years later.
Him and I have this whole conversation. I promised him that I would like be more respectful of Star Wars, that next time I do my due diligence, my research. Him and I ended up having like a laugh over it. We talked on the phone for like 20 minutes. Me and this guy. And here, but prior to that, before even phoning him, I thought, this is some woman in the community, because it had to be, right? In my head, I thought it's got to be a woman who's out to get me, who's being unkind. Yeah. Maybe going to troll me. I didn't know, but no, it was a guy who was obsessed with Star Wars. So every time now I get like a negative DM and I really got to say, I don't that often, because I find people are just fun and, we got enough negativity in our world, but
most people are good.
We still will get like a crappy text or something to the show. And every single time Rob reminds me, he's like, look, remember the Star Wars time? Probably another one of those. Let's just ignore it. Let's not call them back this time. So I just always keep that story in my head that, like, and I guess it's a good lesson too, that you don't know what anyone else is going through. So in the moment that guy sent that, it took him 2 years to build up to sending me that text. He'd been living with that hatred,
that trauma.
You don't know what anyone else is going through. You don't know what shoes they're walking in. So whether it's something, silly like Star Wars, or, I think again to the crazy COVID times, maybe someone had, a relative who was really sick and thought I said something inappropriate about COVID or whatever, right? You never know where their headspace is at. So I just try to keep that in mind, I guess.
Yeah. And I think too, I was talking to someone the other day about difficult clients or customers. And I guess your listeners really are your clients, right? Like your listeners are your customers. And in my 8 years of having stores, I only had 5. And I can tell you every story of those 5 because it was pretty traumatic, right? But at the end of the day, when I reflect back on that, I'm like, it wasn't about the jeans or the whatever they were mad at. It was not about that. There's something else going on. And I think it's really important that you just said, like, you don't know what's going on in their life, because that was not anything about you or what you said. That was about Star Wars. Like, this is actually a really comical example, right? But we spend time worrying on things. You were worrying about, I might run into a woman that said that to me, and that's not even what it was, right?
No.
So you can't spend that time on what you think it might be or what you think it is, because it probably has nothing to do with that anyways, right?
Well, and I internalize everything. I mean, I think you're probably the same, right? So let's say someone is mad about something in the store or something they heard on the radio or something they saw me do on social media, and we internalize it, right? Like you start questioning everything about yourself and what you did that day and how you maybe said something that could have been hurtful. And then I get really wrapped up in my head. I get very upset, and it really does take a bit to unravel me, and then and to know that maybe it's not something that I necessarily did, or perhaps it was, but that person deserves their space and their opinion, and you try to respect it as much as you can. I just really hate the confrontation. I do. It just makes me feel awful. It just does. I'm that person. Everything just hits me right in the heart.
Yeah, I'm the same. And I think I've learned something in the last year or so. And I guess that's probably a COVID thing. But when I, closed my brick and mortar stores, I've now sold my online store. So I don't even own 252 Boutique anymore, which is really strange for me. But I've really learned that, like, I'm very authentic. When you meet me, what you see is what you get. Like, I'm not ever hiding or playing. I'm the same as you. I don't think I'm better than anyone else. I'm very just normal. I'm a normal woman. But I've really learned that I am not my business. Like, I am two separate things. What you saw at my business and what you see on the podcast and everything else is what I really am. But I also am a human being, and I also have a whole other life, right? Like, I'm a wife and a stepmother and a friend and a daughter and all auntie and all these things that people don't see all the time, right? And I've learned that a lot of times, and I mean, I'm not big on social media like you, but I think a lot of it comes from maybe jealousy or competition, things like that. That is nothing that I've done. right? So I've really learned that. I've learned that kind of disconnect. Like, I feel bad that something I said or did hurt someone or offended them or whatever it is, but that was never my intention as a person, right?
And I think that the one good point, like that you said, is we're real people, right? Like, so, you hear Shauna Foster, or you see me on the bus or wherever, or emceeing something on stage, or I'm in a gown, talking about all the gowns that I have to pick from and help me pick what gown to wear. And that is all real me, because I really do need to find a gown to wear to event A, B, C, D.
Yes.
But I am just a girl living in Saskatoon too, who again, at my heart is small town, and I still carry those values with me. I love to spend time with my parents. I actually love like turning everything off and watching, old reruns of Sex and the City and not talking to anyone. And I do things that fulfill me. And if that's, staying inside for the weekend and not going out and seeing people, then that's what fulfills me at that time. And I think that that's okay. And you can't judge what others' fulfillment is, right?
No, exactly. And you need that time. You need that time for yourself. You can't be on all the time.
No,
you can't.
I really can't. No, it's hard. But I think that one thing people are surprised is that when they do meet me is, oh, she is just like, maybe that goofy girl who's embarrassing herself. There's no way.
I mean, you're a celebrity where we live. And I know that's kind of weird to probably think. I know, but you are, but you're a person, and I think you're one of the celebrities, which you are, but you're one of the ones that I know personally, and what you see is what you get. Like, you're the exact same. I mean, I've met lots of other people in the community, and I'm like, this is not what I thought, because it's not the same. And so I think that's why you've been so successful in your career and your social media. Well, you're you, and you're authentic, and people resonate with that. And most people can tell if you're not, right? Like,
I think we call it the bullshit meter at the radio, right? Because some people are completely different on air than off air, and you need to still have some kind of authentic personality, I feel. And sometimes if we see not, then we'll be like, oh, my bullshit meter is going off again. And it happens, and it can happen to me too. But it's funny because when talking about celebrities, I have a really cute little story. So last week I took Jocelyn, she's 7 now. I took her to the Glow Festival in Saskatoon, the big lights, the Christmas lights show.
It's very cool.
And since she was born, since she was in like one of those swings, we put the swing in front of the TV. She has been obsessed with Jeff Rogstad from CTV.
Yeah.
And I mean like obsessed. Like as soon as she could talk, she would call, because he would do the weather. Yeah. And she would say, Mom, it's Jeff and the Sunshines, because he'd always have like the sunshine things up on the TV, right?
Yeah.
So we're at Glow last week, and sure enough, we run smack dab into Jeff Rogstad, Jeff and the Sunshines from CTV, and her eyes, she got flushed in the cheeks. She's like, oh my gosh, Mom, he's a celebrity. She went up to him and she just stared at him, and Jocelyn's very vocal. So for her to not have words was a really big thing. Yeah. And he was so excited to meet her, because I've told him about her crush over the years.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You would have thought that kid met Shawn Mendes. Like the way she was staring up at Rogstad from CTV. Oh my gosh. We had the biggest laugh, but in her eyes, hey, that was a celebrity. So,
oh my gosh, it's so cute.
It's all about who you know.
Also, that just shows you too, because I also talk a lot about you never know who you've, given some positive light to and things like that. There you go. Jeff's not thinking about 7-year-old Jocelyn.
No, but now he is.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like a little bit proud, right? Like he walked away. He's probably like, I'll sign an autograph.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. But that just shows you, right? Be that positive light, and you never know who you are empowering or who you're a role model for. And that's really important.
Totally. I love that. Like, be the light and be the sunshine. And, in that moment, Jeff was for Jocelyn, and maybe sometimes I can be for someone. And that's really my end goal. Make someone feel good in a day. If I can do it, a win. That's a winning day.
I love it. I absolutely love that. 2 questions here that I always do before I close out the show is, do you have an important lesson or something that you can share for the listeners? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's be the light. But what's something that's important to you that you want to share with other people?
I think the big thing for me, especially in the last maybe 10 years, is just to always be that safe place for someone. I remember, I'll never forget, I was on air the morning of 9/11.
And you probably don't even know that.
Isn't that crazy?
I was
like 20 years old.
I was getting ready to go to university, and because I always listen to you and Rob in the morning, I turned the radio on, and you guys were talking about how everyone will remember this for their entire lives. And I didn't know what happened. And I thought you guys were talking about something that happened previously. And I was like, what are they talking about? And I kind of really listened then. And I don't know if somebody said, turn the TV on, but I turned the TV on and saw it. So I remember that. And you're my connection to that. So sorry, I totally interrupted you.
No, I'm glad you said that though, because one of the interesting things that came out of that, so we were on the air for days at a time, right? Because it was the biggest world tragedy that had ever happened. I was just 20 years old, not even knowing enough about life and what a terrorist attack is.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I remember hearing over and over on that day and the days following was, if you can't see a helper, then be the helper. And that always stuck with me. If I'm ever in a situation that's a little bit scary, maybe, or I'm tired, or there's, I even think of something as silly as being in a really busy airport and flights are delayed and canceled, and you see someone that's sad or upset about something. Yeah. It is your job. It's on to you to become the helper in that situation. I was on a flight once, and this would have been obviously after 9/11. And there was a woman who sat next to me, and she was absolutely terrified, having a full-fledged anxiety attack. She was very much open about that and said to me that she rarely flew. It made her extremely nervous. She had a relative involved in 9/11. So since then it had been exasperated. Yep. And it stuck in my head. I thought, well, here you go, Foster, you got to be a helper. And so I held her hand, and I talked to her nonstop for 4 hours on that flight, because I thought, if I can just keep her distracted and busy and, order some snacks and make it a fun experience, then maybe I've helped her in some way. And she actually took my number afterwards, and she contacted me months after our flight and said, like, you helped me so much that day. And so I thought, that's what I want, right? I just want to, if I can't see a helper, then I want to be a helper. So it hit me again, that piece of advice, and how it is so important. When the Humboldt Broncos tragedy happened, another time when I was on the air and in this situation where you can't even fathom the devastation. And I remember the advice came back again, that if you can't see a helper, by God, just become one and jump in and do what you can. And we saw that. We saw so many people do that during the Humboldt Broncos tragedy. So that's always been my life motto, I think, is that, to be the helper.
I love that. And something very small and simple, you talking to a woman on an airplane, that changed her experience and possibly her life, right? Because maybe I don't know. So nervous.
At the time, it just felt like so, not silly, but I thought, am I even doing the right thing here? I don't know, but I'm just going to keep doing the Shauna thing, and we'll get through this flight together. And I don't know. I hope it helped her in some way, but that's like my biggest thing. If I'm ever doing any public speaking, I always say, hey, if you don't think you're making an impact, you are. Just be a helper to someone. It could be the smallest thing in the world, like getting someone a drink or, anything. But
or like shoveling your neighbor's sidewalk, like things that aren't such a big deal, take you 2 minutes, but then you realize that you maybe never realize it, right?
Maybe not.
Do the right thing, be the friend, be the hand that needs to be held, right? I was at City Hospital in Saskatoon the other day, and there was a very elderly lady in the washroom who was trying to get her jacket on and like clearly struggling. And I just said, can I help you? And she said, oh yes, thank you so much. And she had like a tear. And I was like, and she goes, you're so kind. I've been trying to get my coat. Like, it was the simplest little thing. And I said to her, well, I'm able to help you. So that's my job, you know? And she just, thank you and God bless you. And it warmed my heart that I literally helped someone put a jacket on. Like, it was not a big
deal. Her whole day, you know?
Yeah.
You don't know. Maybe she was having surgery. Maybe she had visited someone who was sick. Like, you don't know what that person went through. And in that moment, she's crying because she can't even get her jacket done up. And you helped her. So there you go. You were the help for that.
That was a feel-good moment and something very literally seconds to do, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
I love it.
Exactly.
And is there anything you wish you had known, or if you could give your younger self some advice, what would that be?
That's a funny question because I just filmed a reel a couple weeks ago. I haven't posted it yet, but it's about that. Like, you know, what's your advice for your 18-year-old self or your 17-year-old self? If you could go back and tell yourself, I think for sure my number one is just don't get embarrassed. And that if you're putting yourself out there and that's your authentic you, then just stand by it and be proud of it. But I also think too, what I tell like my niece and my nephews and people who are maybe just going through high school is that if you don't know when you're in grade 12, there's still to this day, all this pressure, you know, on grade 12s, even grade 11s, like, well, you know, you better figure out what you want to do when you graduate. Graduation's coming up. And I just want to tell them that, no, you don't have to know. And that is completely okay. I have the majority of my friends at the end of grade 12, they had these amazing experiences. They traveled the world. They lived this really full, exciting life. And I didn't do that. I went straight to school and then I went straight to work. And I don't have regrets about that, right? Because it was an awesome experience for me. But now I can't go and be that carefree person. I have kids and I have a full-time job, and man, I wish I could go back and take that year and do the adventures and live the life. And who cares if you don't know what you want to do? Just take the time. Like you have the time. You don't know it then because you think, well, geez, I'm a grown-up now. I better do grown-up things. You don't have to, because trust me, there's enough years to do the grown-up things. The bills, all that will wait.
I love that advice. And I think it's so true. And you never know what those experiences will lead you to. Maybe traveling the world, you know, you might rack up a bill at the end, but maybe that will give you an experience that you really enjoy. And you're like, I want to do this for a career or something like that, right?
You could meet someone. You can meet the love of your life and you don't even know it. There's just a million options. It's cool to think about that. You know, that when I think back to what my friends did, because a lot of them did do the traveling route, and they saw just amazing things, and that grows you too, right? Like, so I started my career pretty young. That grew me, but that grew them in a different way. So I think that'd be like one little thing if I could offer advice.
I love that. And life experience, I don't find you ever regret life experience. Never. You regret not doing things, but you never regret those lessons you've learned, right? So,
exactly.
Thank you, Shauna. Where can people find you? Tell them where they can listen to you on the radio and your social media too.
Okay, so C95, you can listen on the app or C95.com. You'll also find me on Z99 in Regina and on C97.7 in Calgary. It is a 90 station. It is a deadly radio station. Like, that's the station where on the weekend, maybe you're outside working in the backyard, you want to put on C97.7. You're going to hear like Pearl Jam and all the music we grew up with. It's all 90s music. So for a 90s kid, it's pretty sweet being on that radio station. So those are all the radio station handles. And then on Instagram, you can find me at C95 Shauna. And I also, we have the C95 account and the C97.7 accounts that you can find me on as well. And then on Facebook, same thing, Facebook. And I do a little bit of Twitter, but I'm not so big on Twitter. It got so like negative and overwhelming.
Yeah, it's going through it.
I do love TikTok. Like, I do love TikTok. I do. And I'm trying to get better at TikTok. My hubby Jeff is always on my case. He's like, you need to be putting all this stuff on TikTok. And then I'll have all these videos. And so I'll post like 10 of them at once. But I need to get better at that.
Yeah, I'm good at watching TikTok, not good at posting TikTok. I have like 2 videos.
And I love watching it. I do. But I'm just terrible at posting on it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a 2023 thing. Is your goal is get more active on TikTok. Awesome. Well, thank you, Shauna. And thank you everyone for listening. And we will see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and leave a rating and review. wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. And of course, a huge thank you to this episode's guest. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.